So welcome to another edition of GW Unspoken. We discuss stuff we don't typically talk about but probably should, and I'm just having a rave today. This is not to do with any of our seasons on the innate code of what I believe is brings out optimistic health, or ultimate health, I should say. This is just one of those days. So I want you, all those listeners out there who think that, you know, my life might be better or other people's lives might be better, you're probably wrong, because things happen to people every single day. In fact, I was reading a book the other day and they talked about how most business and entrepreneurs who are really successful in their lives and relationships and probably financial journeys, assets, they often say it's nearly hard. It's one of the hardest things to replicate a successful day every single day. And I just remember that I had one of those days recently, and it was weird because it came after a weekend where my wife and I had like a date weekend. I had no kids that weekend, and we went to the city and haven't danced for ages, and that's probably a good thing because if you see that dance style, it's not that good anyway. But we had that. We did a few drinks, and we went in the next day also and watched the Test match footy. And it's just a so low-key, relaxed weekend. I think we both needed it, and we both need to have something different that we hadn't done for a while. So it was great just to invest back in that relationship and let our hair down a bit and have a bit of fun. And then Monday rolled around, and I just remember going to work in a positive space. I've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning and working on the side business from school, and just thinking, oh, this is just ultimate. Like, kids are quiet in bed now. I can have a little coffee, get going, let the dogs out in the morning, and just sit there for an hour and a half before I start getting ready for school. And it just started happening, from a disagreement with someone in admin to early in the morning to, you know, starting off in the afternoon doing a podcast. I went to the library and set up they got a brand new gear in the library. It's awesome stuff. And I was actually helping someone else out before that via phone and via email. And eventually got down to the last bit. I've got to do this podcast, got to go and pick up the girls. And it was actually after that, it had the girls. So I was actually getting home for dinner, etc. And then next thing, I had 12 minutes left in battery. And I thought, I got 12 minutes left in my battery really to do a podcast. And most of the podcasts go for 10 minutes or around that anyway. It'll be close, but then I'd have to save it onto my own drive because I'm using someone else's equipment. Doesn't sound major, right? But it was just the time pressure was there, the battery pressure was there. And I looked at every single device in the library I could see and tried to plug it in to my laptop. Nah, didn't work. And I knew I had to take the girls also to trampoline that night. So I was on the clock. So I said, nah, that's it. I'm going to ring my wife. He said, just come home. We'll all be quiet. You do the podcast at home like you normally do at night time when the girls are typically in bed. So I got home, told a couple of girls that were home then, say, hey, look, we'll take you to trampoline at 5:30. Just going to be quiet here for 15 minutes. We'll do this podcast. And I started the podcast and I felt like things were going pretty well. And I was talking about nutrition and things seeming flowing okay, and had a few little analogies in there and a bit of humour. I thought, this will do. Things are looking good at the moment. I'm enjoying doing the podcast. And next thing, out of the blue, my two blue heelers race down the side where the podcast studio is and start barking at the neighbours who are building a caravan or setting up their caravan. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, that's like 3 strikes in a row when I'm time pressured. And it was like only about a minute to go on the podcast. I was about to start talking about the journal entry that I'll encourage listeners to do to support themselves, and I could not believe it. And so I stopped it, replayed it, and I could see if I could actually hear, or try to hear those, if I could hear those dogs barking, listening, they sing, no, I think it's good, and they sing, beep, beep, beep. And I thought, I'm not going to take the time to actually, you know, most of the podcasts that come through GW Unspoken are not edited because I want people to hear the authentic voice and the things that happen around, and also, you know, the hums and ahs. And so people know it's a conversation. It's not just a written speech that I do. And I could not believe it. And I was like, I cannot believe I just wasted another 12 minutes because I didn't tie the dogs up. And I just thought I'd get away with it in a little 12 or 15-minute episode. And I thought, oh, okay. So deleted that off, quickly got the girls. Let's go to the trampolining, watch them for a while, often listen to an audiobook or take my butcher's paper and do a bit of work while the girls are doing trampolining. And then I thought, oh, that's it. I need to do a few groceries and just a couple of drinks a night. Just write this up as one of those challenging days. Not a bad day, just a challenging day that, you know, you get them every now and then. So I thought, no worries, let's just do that. So the girls are trampolining. It was about half an hour in, around 6 o'clock, and I walked outside, and the shops were only about, I don't know, maybe a 4-minute walk. So I've walked out there, run, take the car, and then in the meantime, I couldn't get a car park. So I've parked away from the gymnastics session of centre. So probably about 50 metres from the centre, which I'd normally park closer to. And I walked in, dropped them off, watched them for half an hour, came outside. And as I go to the shops, I look up at the sky and think, oh my my gosh, it's so cloudy and it's rumbling like storms and stuff. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I rang Rach and said, hey, are you at home with the other girls? Because I think the storm's going to hit. And she says, yeah, I just got home. So I'm safe. It's all good. I said, oh, no worries. Rightio. Well, I'm just going to get a few things, maybe a couple of drinks, and I'll come home. And when the girls are in bed, we'll have a couple of drinks and, write it off as a day and have a bit of a joke and laugh about what happened. So no problem. Go in to get some groceries into the bottle-o, and I come out and it's pouring down rain. And I don't have a car because I've walked 4 minutes to the bottle-o, and I'm like, okay. So what's going to happen here? I could race and run back, or I could walk back. I could wait for it. I'm not waiting for this storm. It could be for ages. And so it's just sort of sheets of rain coming through. And so, no. So bag in hand, I've jogged back as much as I could to where we were at the YMCA. And by the time I got there, it was torrential rain. Now, I'm still wearing my long clothes from work. So long pants, nice shoes, long sleeve shirt. And next thing, it is bucketing down. And so much so that I'm looking like basically a robber. I've got my back against the wall of the YMCA centre. The rain is fleeting through in showers of rain with the wind behind it. So the wall is basically protecting me from all the rain, apart from the drips that are dripping over the edge of the wall, down my back and wetting me. I was like, oh, this is just crazy. And it was pouring down. I'm talking about, it's like flash flooding where I was in seconds, like literally in minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'll just run this to the car. And I went, oh, the car is past the car park, isn't it? It's an extra 50 metres out on the main road. And so I'm waiting to go, well, I'm getting wet here. Do I risk it? I'm sort of half wet by now. I said, no, I'll just wait a couple of minutes. So I'm getting a little dripped on. And next thing, it dies down. And that's it. I'm making a run for it. So in boots, long clothes, I'm legging it across the park to get to the car. And I reckon I've gone 10 metres out of the 50 metres, and it has just hammered down. It's like they talk about the eye of the hurricane or the twister. I was dry, and then bang, it just belted me on the way to the car. And I'm thinking, I've got 40 metres to run to this car roughly, and I'm carrying bags in my hand. Oh, I've gone too far now. I'm not going back because I'm going to get wet anyway. I'm legging it to the car. So I'm legging across this the park, jumping through bushes. I don't know what it looked like from the outside. And I'm about, I don't know, 5 or 6 meters from the car, and the bags break and these bottles go everywhere. So about 4 or 5 bottles go out from the groceries and drinks. And I'm just like, oh, I'm gone now anyway. So I've just done just stopped. There's no point. I'm not going to get any drier by going faster now. So I've opened up the back of the car, put the groceries in, come back, picked up the 4 or 5 bottles, come back, put that in, and I've just slowly opened the car, jumped in, and just had a look at myself in the revision mirror because I just jumped in to look, say, can I get a car parked closer now? And I was just drenched. Like the back seat was water. I had water in my clothes, water in my boots, and I'm just like, so I'm texting Rach and she's just laughing, and I'm just like, you're not going to beat me, Jesus. I'm just going to keep going. So I don't know. There's half an hour to go before I pick the girls up. Where we live is about probably 10 or 12 minutes from where the YMCA is. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wait here only for half an hour. And I'm like, I cannot sit here or go back into the YMCA like this for half an hour. So I drove home 10 minutes. Of course, got every red light and traffic because of the wet. And sitting in there just pouring down rain. My aircon's not working in the old Prado I've got. It's a 2007, love it, the old Black Panther I call it. The old Black Prado's just struggling to keep going. The aircon's cooked as I'm fogging up. And I'm just like wild, but I have to laugh about it. I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening. And I know it's only small, but it just felt like one of those days of one after the other. Anyway, I quickly raced home, opened the car door, unloaded some groceries. Rach got a fright run while I was home for, and she looked at me and just, I think she sort of half laughed. She's trying to be empathetic, but it's no point. She just sort of looked at my face, quickly changed, raced back, picked up the girls, and then one of the girls gets in the car and goes, hey, how come you got mum's car? What happened here? And I just couldn't. I said, no, I just want to change cars because the aircon's not working. That was my response. But I remember just getting home and having a laugh with the girls. And then went to bed, and I think I had one drink. I didn't feel like drinking anyway, and don't usually drink during the week or drink much anyway. So I had one drink, and we're just laughing about it. And Rachel's like, you have to do a podcast about this. And I was thinking, there's it's not a bad day. Like it wasn't really a really rough bad day where it's, we got really poor relationships or things are dangerous or, you had a near-death experience or like that. But sometimes when we have those days and you start thinking, woe was me, or, this is just ridiculous, how could this happen? I think you need to have a bit of a check about how grateful you are for the things you do have. And I just remember dropping the girls home and having dinner and having a shower and cleaning up and saying goodnight to them like I always do. Just sit there going, that's one thing compound after the other after a fantastic, relaxed weekend. It's amazing how life can change so quickly. But realistically, how rough was it? Yeah, it was frustrating. Yeah, it was annoying. And yeah, it went from why me, why one thing after the other. But at the end of the day, it's not that bad. And I think sometimes we need to I definitely need to have a look at myself and say, what are the things in my life that's happening that feels like the world's against us, or it always happens to me, or, I'm stuck in traffic again. Like all these things we tell ourselves, because they say our brain it's primitive. Like we think about the things that keep us safe. So our brain's always looking to save energy. It's looking to either look towards something that's really positive, but more importantly, it's looking to stop dangers, and it's looking for shortcuts to save energy for our brain. And I think it's easy to look at the negatives, and that day could have been a write-off going, I hate this, is ridiculous. I hope tomorrow's better because that just sucked, and dwell in that rather than just go, oh my gosh, just all those things just seem to compound today. It was just one of those days after that awesome weekend. And I just have to say it was one of those days. I just have to say, just be grateful. It's actually not that bad. And, what are the positives from it? The positives, I've got a story to tell. And if it's not a very exciting story, it's something that day was very frustrating for me. And so I want to ask you as a listener, what are some of those things that you do day in, day out? What are some of the things that's really frustrating you at the moment? What are things that are annoying you and dragging you down? I mean, one of the biggest things people talk about is, young kids talk about school, and older people talk about their work or their lack of work and their financial pressures. But I think one of the biggest ones, and if we're true to ourselves, is our authentic connections. I think it's those things that really matter to us, the things where we feel accepted, the ones where we feel belonged. Do we have a loved one we can confide in? Do we have a connection there that it's actually really strong at the moment, that when you think about it is probably what the meaning of life is actually having those authentic connections that actually mean something to yourself, but also how you can help other people and that feeling you get in return from that. What are some things out there? What are things you're struggling with? Is there a work colleague that you seem to be butting heads with? Is there a family member? Is there a child or a sibling that, it's actually grating on your gears, and you're trying to understand, this conflict resolution? How can I actually get this to a better spot? Have you got the mindset of you don't want it to be to a better spot, and you just say frustrated, you've given up? And I think it's really important that we have that. I think it's really important that we have that thought of that belonging, that authentic connection, because we all crave that. We all need that. And the human species is built to belong and to have a culture of belonging. So who are your people? Who are your people out there that you can confide in? Who are the people you can actually ring up and say, oi, I've had a really tough day today, but I'm trying to see the positive light of this. I want you to have a listen. Can you just be a listening board for me to this? I don't want you to solve anything. I just wanted to see what you think. Out of 10, 10 is hilarious. 1 is, that sounds like hell. Tell you what we think my day is. And just have that little connection you have with somebody, because you can't measure the impact friends can have on you. And to have that one person you can reach out on and say that they're there for you, to even have an ear, is so important. So I want to finish the podcast by hopefully you reflecting. What is one of the bad days you've had recently, and how bad was it? How do you get over things that are detrimental to your everyday life? If there's a death in your family, you probably never get over that properly. You never do. But what's something that maybe you could have blown out of proportion that wasn't as bad as a death, where you look back now and go, actually I got through that day and I moved on from that day. At the time it was hell, but now I can look back at it and see significant moments that actually, I had a tenacity and a resilience and a grit to keep going, because that's the measure of a person too. It's how you can keep going and also influence those people around you. Thanks for listening to Getaway.